Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. We're talking TNA. We're talking Hogan Sting. I'm looking forward to this one, man. And my expectations are not that we're going to have a 5-star Matt Classic, but as you like to say, I think we're going to see some shenanigans.
Yes, I definitely think we are. I think we're going to see some familiar names on this card here. I think it's just it's one of those like, yeah, I feel like why not talk about it, you know?
Agreed. All right, this is going to be a fun one. I'm ready to jump right in if you are.
Let's do it, man. Yeah.
Okay. It's time for the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
TNA, we're in Philadelphia. I can't even pronounce the name of this venue. Liacorus Center, 3,585 in attendance. The tagline for this is "We the People" because we're in Philadelphia. TNA at this era, if nothing else, was interesting. And you said it with some of the names on here and some of the matches. I think there's a lot of hidden gems and a lot of really good stuff in this era of TNA that I certainly have never seen. I'm guessing in a lot of cases you haven't seen either.
Definitely not. Yeah.
So dark match on this show was Mexican America, which are your tag team champions, defeating Inc. in 8 minutes. Show starts off with Austin Aries defeating Brian Kendrick in an X Division match, 10 minutes. Probably an awesome way to start the show.
Sure.
In a Full Metal Mayhem match, RVD defeats Jerry Lynn. So we're doing that in Philadelphia. That's pretty cool. Crimson's going to defeat Matt Morgan and Samoa Joe in a 3-way match. Mr. Anderson's going to defeat Bully Ray in a Falls Count Anywhere Philadelphia street fight in 14 minutes. So pretty heavy ECW influence here. Velvet Sky is going to win a 4-way TNA Women's Knockout Championship match with Karen Jarrett as a special guest referee, defeating Winter, Madison Rain, and Mickey James. AJ Styles is going to defeat Christopher Daniels in an I Quit match. That had to be good, right? Actually, I'll give you that in a second. Sting and Hogan is your semi-main event. And then your main event is Kurt Angle retaining his TNA World Championship against Bobby Roode in 15 minutes. So they're calling it the best pay-per-view of the year for TNA. Most entertaining Bound for Glory in history. Of course, this is their big show. Slammiversary is their big show.
Slammiversary
right?
more, yeah.
Bound for Glory is pretty big too. Van Dam rated well, Angle Rude. So, yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was a pretty well-received show. Sting Hogan, I know that, I mean, you could spend hours talking about their history, and I want to get into some of that during the match, but from a TNA standpoint, how do we get to these two wrestling? We got Ric Flair involved, Garrett Bischoff, got a lot of stuff going on. Control.
It's all kinds, yeah.
Yeah, try to walk us through this.
So this show taking place October 16th, 2011. We're going to go back to really a year and a half before you had January 4th. There was a 3-hour Monday night edition of TNA Impact. You had Hogan and Bischoff debuting. That Sting kind of siding with TNA from part of the story that's playing out was he tried to warn Dixie Carter, who was the president of TNA at the time, like there's just shenanigans here. Things are being weird. Like there's some conspiracy, like stuff happening. And so it was actually the previous Bound for Glory in 2010, October 10th, that you had Hogan, Bischoff, Jeff Jarrett, Abyss, and the newly crowned TNA World Heavyweight Champion Jeff Hardy were revealed to be the faction They, just They. It was something that Abyss had for months they had been building toward, almost like the who was the commissioner in WWE, like all these different things that they were kind of building toward, and this is when it was revealed. And so dealing with that and kind of showing that they were then going to try and take over TNA. You then had them calling themselves the Immortal, and Sting, who, along with Kevin Nash, who, along with him, had sided with Sting. They were invited to join, but the two instead, I say, quote, left the company. And so you had months of Immortal controlling TNA, and then Sting returning on March 3rd, 2011 on an episode of Impact. He ended up winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, and then retaining the belt. He feuded with Immortal at Slammiversary. He had a back and forth, had some feuding with Mr. Anderson as well too. Just kind of, it was really the faction, really a throwback in a lot of ways to the NWO stuff of trying to recruit Sting and different people and all this other stuff. And so it was interesting. One thing I did want to point out on this one was because we've seen Joker Sting in AEW recently in the last couple of months here. And so this was actually where he debuted Joker Sting. And so, it's where he was being a little bit more just like the Joker, a little bit more maniacal. The paint was a little bit different. Like you just had this, he was called the Insane Icon, was it? And it was, Bischoff made a good point here because when we saw Joker Sting in AEW, he said, well, that's what you thought if you're familiar with his work during the early days of the Hogan Bischoff era of TNA. If you saw Joker Sting, you probably were and didn't know that, you were probably pretty confused. And so because they were referencing Joker Sting on AEW, but Ian and I was like, who the hell's Joker Sting? Like, give me Surfer Sting. Like, what's going on here? So just unusual. So getting a little closer to the event, we're into August now at this point. Again, the event happening in October. August, it was Hardcore Justice. Sting actually lost the title to Kurt Angle. It was after interference from Hogan. And they actually recruited Angle to Immortal in the process, that faction as well, too. So if you had Hogan cost Sting the opportunity to regain the title, there's a couple of different times. Sting actually started kind of building against Hogan, trying to get Hogan to go back to being better, trying to get him out of Immortal. You also had Ric Flair, earning a victory against Hogan. It was at Bound for Glory. And so Sting, throughout all of this, you had the faction, you had Sting trying to recruit Hogan back from being in this group. And it was decided that Hogan agreed to give TNA back to Dixie Carter if Sting won the match. And so it really played out over a long time. Kind of interesting how that happened. We're going to see a lot of the faces that we've talked about in this one during this match kind of pop up. Kind of adding to it. So that's going to just be interesting. But yeah, it's just a lot of pieces at play here. I like a good faction. Like, it started to make a ton of sense. And I think, after I was kind of doing my notes, it is a little bit of a throwback to NWO and kind of what they were doing and kind of taking over, but they actually did it. And so, we got, we'll watch the match. Like you said, it's not going to be the most incredible match, but part of the story kind of came to a head here, and kind of we see the results of a lot of this months and really year-long faction, and kind of Sting trying to bring Hogan back to the light side. So whatever you need. So yeah, so that's where we're at.
Okay. It is what it is, right?
Yeah. There's really not whatever. That's really what it is.
They're trying here, but it just I think this is why you listen to some of that and you're like, yeah, that's not the greatest booking in the world. And we're a long ways away from, 98 Sting Hogan, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, all right, well, let's jump into this one.
Yep.
We are on Impact Wrestling's YouTube, which I get the sense has a ton of stuff on here, because I feel like every time we need a TNA clip or match or something, it's on YouTube for free, which is pretty cool.
It's got 20 million views.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, and I'm sure there's other clips like this where there's just a ton of views all over the world. And then, Impact has 5 million YouTube subscribers too. It's not it's TNA LOL, but like, dude, there were a hell of a lot of people watching TNA. You got 4,000 in this arena. Like they did fine. I mean, in a lot of ways, they were more popular then than AEW is now. But they made a lot of business mistakes. ECW was also very popular, arguably as popular as AEW is now. But different era, different landscape, and that's just interesting. So, all right, let's jump into this one. But Impact Wrestling's YouTube channel, Bound for Glory 2011, Sting versus Hulk Hogan. Type that in; it's in there. I'm excited to cover this because I think we'll have some interesting stuff to talk about, and I think some interesting stuff will happen. So, Jeff, are you ready?
Let's do this.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
All right, so we have Joker Sting wearing a Hulkamania t-shirt.
The yellow, yep.
Okay. Hogan is in, I guess you would call him street clothes, kind of wrestling gear. He's got the red knee pads there.
Have a little bit of the Hogan showing through with the red. Yeah, I got the red bandana. Yep.
I mean, just look at Hogan moving around. Hogan had all those surgeries and stuff. I mean, it's just, he's moving around okay, but
a little slow there.
I need to get a timeline on this. That there's some things I'm curious about. So, like, couple things here. I got a lot to talk about. So,
yeah, sure.
Hogan Sting. The first time they wrestled was actually on a Nitro. They went to a no contest in 1995. Okay, so Ric Flair's coming out to be the special guest referee.
Profiling, yep.
Dixie's not happy about it. Here comes Flair. So he's going to be involved. Hogan's happy about it. Sting and Dixie are not happy about it. Okay, so Hogan Sting, that's the first time they wrestled. And that was the only time pre-NWO. So NWO, we obviously have 96 Bash at the Beach. There was a War Games match that Hogan and Sting were both involved with in 96. But then we don't have Sting wrestle for 15 months. That's going to be the Starrcade match, which I don't remember, but the next night on Nitro, we got a 5-minute no contest between Sting and Hogan the night after that. Then they had a steel cage match in January that looks like it was just a house show, WCW Boston Brawl. They're in a tag match. So then they wrestle at Super Brawl, and then Sting's going to win the vacant, quote unquote. So they butchered that whole thing, but that's what happened. They're in a bunch of tag matches, a steel cage match on a house show, WCW LA Melee, bunch of tag matches. Sting's going to defeat Hogan for the world championship in 1999 at Fall Brawl. Sting's going to defeat Hogan in 3 seconds at Halloween Havoc 1999. And then they don't wrestle again one-on-one until this match, which was 11 years after WCW, after they were in a match together. So long break. So anyways, I thought that was interesting, just a little timeline. And then Hulk Hogan, this was his last match outside of he did a couple like 6-man tags for TNA after this, but this was it. And I think this was after he even did I was trying to think of when that Hulkamania tour was in Australia. Let me just find that real quick, because I'm curious about that. So timeline wise. Okay, so yeah, the Hulkamania tour in Australia was 2 years before this. And that was one where he had just gotten over surgery and was really banged up. So those Flair matches over in Australia were 2009. Hulkamania Let the Battle Begin. 2009. This is 2 years later. And this was it. This was it this is Hogan's last singles match.
It's interesting because nobody was watching TNA at this time, but the star, I say, look at the star power in the ring right now. Like, why weren't we? Like, you got Sting, you got Hogan, you got Flair, you had Jeff Jarrett, you had the card was we weren't, I wasn't following AJ Styles at the time, but on the card on this one, like, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense that we weren't watching this one. Like Kurt Angle, Kurt Angle, like, plain and simple. And so, just unusual.
I attribute it to the TV landscape. I think that 12 years ago, you didn't have YouTube TV to record it. You weren't watching as much stuff on DVR. I just think if this was happening in this era now, I would have been watching this. And oh, by the way, if the pay-per-views were free on a network or something. So I think that was the problem, is it was just a lot harder to watch, and they were changing channels. And, I guess you had DVR then, but like, you weren't DVRing as much. I don't know.
So you got not a whole lot of wrestling going on here. There's some rest holds. You got Sting getting dumped to the outside a few times. You got Flair attacking Sting in front of Dixie Carter at this point too. Like, yeah, just kind of everybody's just moving a little slow. That was the worst looking low blow I've seen in a long time too. Hogan high-fiving fans at ringside though.
It's interesting. I think Vince McMahon played a big part in Hulk Hogan's career. I just, there's a lot of stuff you see Hogan did, whether it was here, WCW, and when left to his own devices, I do believe that Hulk Hogan, at times did stuff that necessarily wasn't the best.
Mm-hmm. See, it's been, like I said, I added this after, he was doing the podcast circuit for a bit, and I was listening to all those. So was Flair, which I think Flair was better, I think, than the ones I listened to. But also, like, I think I texted you, I could not get through when Hogan was on Rogan, because it just, like, they weren't letting him talk. I want to hear Hogan tell these stories, and you got to let him loose, like, let him do his thing. Like, I know you've said at any point you're ready to fly down to his shop and interview him for the show. Like, we are ready to go. And so, but I feel like the dude, like, he's got so many stories, and I get he is embellishing a lot of this, like, and part of it may just be how he remembers it and his own kind of like glory on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Hulk Hogan mark, so maybe I have some bias here. Yeah, there is absolutely stuff that Hogan says that's complete bullshit. And again, whether he's lying, working, or just doesn't remember. I mean, the guy is 70 years old, first of all. Second of all, everyone in the wrestling business bullshits. Like, you, yeah. I mean, like, you, they all they all embellish. They all don't remember stuff. I mean, even with these podcasts, it's like Bruce Pritchard will say something. Eric Bischoff will say the opposite. Well, one of them or both of them's lying, right? They can't both be right.
Right.
I don't think they're liars, but it's like, you do have an industry of bullshitters. I mean, you get guys that, hey, I mean, Sergeant Slaughter still dresses up in his gimmick. He still lives his gimmick. He didn't want a female to wear camo that was actually serving, so.
It's got to be funny, like, because you and I have seen him at some of like the conventions and stuff, and to be like staying at one of those hotels and not know what's going on or not know who he is and just see this dude every day walking. You got to be like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, what the hell is going on? Like, What's your timestamp here? I got some weird ads that popped up.
I'm at 11:16.
Okay, that's right where I am too. Awesome. Okay.
Things bleeding pretty good.
Yeah, Sting's dripping pretty good here. Yeah, Hogan's got it all.
This isn't bad for what it is. I mean, obviously it's a brawl with you're telling a story, but it's not like I'm watching the wrestling and I'm like, oh, it's so bad. Like it's just I think they're doing a pretty good job of working around obvious limitations.
Blair taking some bumps here, getting punched a little bit. Sting grabs something from him. Was that Nux? I couldn't tell. Oh, yeah. Ooh, hit Hogan square with it. A couple times. Hogan's bloodied up too now. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for what this is, it's not bad.
It's definitely within their limitations of what they can achieve. Yeah.
I mean, look, go in your 50s, go work a 10-minute match. You tell me what it looks like.
Yeah. At the same time, like God, like I said, the star power here, not even just the star power, but like there's 150 years of wrestling experience right now, standing around the ring and in the ring. Like, just how long, if not more than that, like just how long these guys have been doing this and going. And like that Ric Flair interview made me think like, man, Rick's ready for his last match. Like, this is crazy. Like, dude felt so bad about how he looked and getting knocked out and gassed and stuff like that. Like, I am ready for another retirement match from Flair. So go Sting. He got what he got locked in here. Yep. Trying to get Hogan turned over. Yep. And there's a submission. Sting not really cinching down on it, not really sitting back. Hogan tapping here, and the ref finally. Dixie Carter gets it back.
Hogan quickly taps. I wonder if his back was just so bad that he couldn't.
He could only sell it for so long. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't really cinch it in. I wonder if that's the case.
So here comes everybody: Bischoff, Bully Ray. And so gonna attack Sting. Yep, and now they're attacking Sting. Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner as well too out there. Yeah, and we didn't say it at the start, and we should have. The referee is Garrett Bischoff. And so that's why he hesitated to call for the bell when Hogan was submitting. So just attacking Sting at this point. Yep.
All right, well, let's keep this on and jump into the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
All right, what'd you think?
Like you said, it was fine for what it was. And so you've got Bischoff's son now kind of turning on dad. He's about to get attacked at this point. Yep. Hitting his own son with a chair shot. Yeah, I think it was, for like you said, for what it was, it's from a storytelling perspective, it was perfectly fine. Like, you're telling that story. You've got everybody on their feet, so they are enjoying it, or at least paying attention to it. So while it's the best, like, we're not going to get, a 5-star match out of this, but from a storytelling perspective, it's perfectly fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Big Papa Pump.
Sting just getting beat down here. Yep.
Who's the guy with the ponytail?
I'm not sure. Again, we don't know all these people.
Give us the write-ups on this one.
Yeah, so this one, and I will come back to it. Yeah, so the write-ups, let's get here. So, the full bag of tricks was out to fill those 9 minutes, but it worked for the purpose it intended to serve. And this is from the Torch. It's not like there were any expectations for the athleticism, and Hogan knew what he could do and didn't push it and make it look bad by doing things he's incapable of. So you got Hogan up now. And he's going to start attacking. Yep, and here he goes. Now he has turned now. He's attacking Flair. He's attacking Bully Ray. Yep, he just took out Scott Steiner, like all these different people. Yep. It's it. All right. The ring was cleared of all but Bischoff, Sting, and Hogan. And so they're about to clear this out here. We won't spoil this too much, but yep. So you got Sting is up now. Hogan's up, and they're beating each other's chests. Here we go. Yep. You got Bischoff cowering in the corner. So just clearing it out. Yep.
Now I remember watching this at some point.
Yep.
Hogan. Yeah, this was his last singles match.
Hogan taking a weird, Flair taking a weird corner shot. Yep, with the death drop there.
Hey, is there any chance that guy with the ponytail was Drew McIntyre?
I don't think so.
Because there was a G on his shirt. I was just like, is that Galloway? I don't know.
I don't know.
All right.
So now we've got Hogan and Sting in the ring. Hogan has kind of both guys bloodied up, looking like hell, but Bischoff is in the ring as well, too, kind of cowering in the corner. I do appreciate the Hardy gets us high t-shirts, the four guys wearing them in the background there. Like, yep. He's dealing with his problems, unfortunately, but yeah.
I mean, the fans are into this.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to see Eric Bischoff get punched, Like, that's kind of what this boils down to. And so, yep. They'll pop here when it happens. Big wind up from Hogan. Yep. And they're all cheering. Hey, you know what?
Yeah, I mean, this is entertainment.
Right.
There's more to this stuff than how good the stars of the match were.
It is funny too. This was 2011 and 2023. We got Sting having the matches he has now. Like, it's crazy to think 13 years after this or 12 years after this, Sting is still probably going harder than he did in this match, which is crazy.
Oh yeah.
So this is going to play out here a little bit here. You've had, obviously these two guys realigning with each other at this point. And winning that. And so it was actually the following night on Impact. You had Dixie Carter replacing Sting in charge of TNA after what, all the stuff he had done. He returned. It was actually a couple months later to the ring, just a few matches here and there, but he teamed up with Jeff Hardy to defeat Bobby Roode and Bully Ray both times. So a couple different tag matches. And so Sting, though, feuded with Bobby Roode a little bit. So that's why you had that kind of the tag team matches coming out of that too. Ended up beating Bobby Roode in a no holds barred match at both Victory Road and Slammiversary. He also left the general manager position in favor of Hulk Hogan, and then signed a contract extension with TNA, and it was the first inductee into TNA's Hall of Fame. So there you go. Hogan on this one. Hogan actually came out, and we'll have to look it up. I encourage everyone. We'll share the clip online. But Hogan came out the next night in the classic yellow and red, putting Sting over for the win and all that good stuff. So yeah, they ended up feuding with it ended up being a group of masked men who we kind of saw it a little bit during this match, kind of peeking behind the curtain. It was the Aces and Eights stable. And kind of dealing with them as well. And so some of their members, of course, Bully Ray, you had D'Lo Brown, like there was all kinds of like different stuff. And so Tito Ortiz was a part of that as well too, like just kind of like all these different people. Again, they were very high on the factions. And so dealing with that. So yeah, but yeah. So, okay. Just stuff, just kind of weird. This was really the end to that storyline, so it made sense. But some more write-ups on this one. Sting and Hogan shook hands and raised each other's arms. Yep. Good stuff there. So this was in regards to the matches of the night, this was number 4. It only got a couple, in which rightfully so. The Hogan scenario couldn't have gone better, and this is the torch. Even though there was concern about having a bad match in Philadelphia, Hogan is the master of getting a reaction with live crowds, even more now because he hasn't wrestled a match in 19 months and hasn't had a pay-per-view match since his 2006 SummerSlam match with Randy Orton. Sting beat Hogan in 9:34. Hogan came out acting like a complete face, doing his facials to beg the crowd to cheer for him, and they did. The pop when Hogan tore the shirt and the guys ran into his fist and bumped was really big, 3 stars. So Torch didn't rank it. They gave this one the newsletter gave it 3. Where do you got this one?
No, I mean, like, I have it as like a 5 out of 10. I mean, it's not horrible. And I love the guys in the match, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. It is perfectly adequate. Like, in regards to just pure wrestling, yeah, it's like a 1, maybe a 2. But like, you tell them the story. There was a lot to it. There was a lot of buildup for a long time on this one. It was the cap off to that story. Like, how can you not enjoy that? Plain and simple. So I'm with you. I'm at a 5. So,
all right, that's it.
That's it, man. Yeah, I want to, of course, remind everybody, don't forget about manscaped.com using that code PAYOFF, 20% off and free shipping. Caldera and Lab as well, too. There's this Caldera, Caldera lab.com using the code PAYOFF. You're getting 20% off there. So 20% off all over. Sometimes you go and you log into the website, it only says 10 or 15. Get that extra couple of percentages off. And so whatever you're looking for, like I know, we've got their full slate of products. Tom, I know you recently just got the Handyman. I know both of us were typically not a fan of those, but you are a changed man now since you got the Handyman.
I love it. I think it's an excellent product. It's like, I've seen stuff like that. I think it's better than any of those, but it's just a great way to quickly trim your face without having to do the full shave. And so it's just kind of a compact electric razor. It's awesome. I love it.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay. All right. With that, let's send them home happy.
Cool. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll see you next week on an all new episode of The Payoff.